Welcome to this episode of the Sports Detective Podcast Show. My name is James Williams, and today Mack Brown almost quit his job. What are we talking about? Well, this past Saturday, North Carolina hosted James Madison, and you probably think about James Madison like, hey, they're a pretty good football program. Last year, they were ranked for a time. They hosted College Game Day, and you're just looking at that team, and you're like, okay, they're a pretty good program. But as what happens to a lot of good G5 programs is Indiana came and took their head coach Kurt Cignetti, and then they had a bunch of players, leave with Kurt Cignetti to go to Indiana, and a bunch of other, talented players on their team from last year go to other programs. So they were in a situation where they had 55 new players on this football team this year, and their last game that they played was against Gardner Webb, where they only scored 13 points. Well, when they went to Chapel Hill, they scored 70 points against North Carolina, including 53 points in the first half against North Carolina. If this was Miami and they did this, or this is Clemson and they did this to North Carolina, it would be a huge problem. But for a team that struggled to get 13 points against Gardner Webb, that is a G5 team, to come into North Carolina and drop 70 is cause for a lot of concern. And Mack Brown, after the game, basically went into his locker room with his players and said, hey, if I am the problem here, I will leave. I will leave. I will step away from being your head coach, and I'll go ahead and show you guys this little snippet from Inside Carolina here that kind of gives you the whole point of the story here. So afterward, in the post-game locker room, with emotions high and disappointment, with emotions and disappointment running high, Brown told the Tar Heels he would walk away and step down from his coaching post if that would be best for the team, per multiple sources. Additional sources said the UNC players reacted to these words with passionate support for Brown after that remark from the coach, taking the blame themselves. Sources have since conveyed hope from UNC players that Brown will finish the season, but if not, tight ends coach and run game coordinator Freddie Kitchens could have player support to take an interim role, sources said. So Mack Brown did say after the game, like, hey, I'm not resigning. I came into work on Monday, and also said, like, hey, it was my fault. Emotions were running high after that game, and I shouldn't have put my players in that situation by saying that. And basically kind of apologized to his players and his coaching staff for saying that stuff and letting that stuff get out to the media. And obviously, Mack Brown is, as we know right now, more than likely going to be coaching North Carolina for the rest of this season. But I want to talk about North Carolina. I want to talk about Mack Brown's tenure at North Carolina, because it has been a lot of good, but also kind of chaotic to a degree. So Mack Brown takes over 2019. This is his sixth year coaching the team now, in his second tenure. And there's been a lot of success. They're going to bowl games every single year. They're winning sometimes 7, 8, 9 games a year. But if you're watching these North Carolina teams, there's a lot of really good things that are going on with this teams, but there's also a lot of really bad things going on with these teams, even though they are winning 7, 8, 9 games a year, which is relatively good for North Carolina standards. They're hitting their expectations. It's kind of coming with a little bit of a thing where it's like all of these teams are flawed. Like they're getting into these games where they're playing down to their competition, like a James Madison, giving up 70 points to them. They're giving up 60 points to Appalachian State. They're getting into shootouts with Duke. Like they're doing these things where it's like they're having to have their offense basically save the day, or Drake May or Sam Howell save the day for them in a lot of situations. And it doesn't matter what defensive coordinator, it doesn't matter that it's year 2 or it's year 3 or it's year 4, now it's year 6. We keep seeing the same problems with all of these North Carolina teams under Mack Brown. And I think that's kind of the issue right here, is that these teams have just been flawed. And when they're playing these really good teams in the ACC, I was looking it up. They're 4-8 with Mack in his second tenure against ranked teams. And when they're playing a lot of these good teams, and it's only one win since 2022 against a ranked team, by the way. Now, that's kind of a weird stat, because a lot of times with the ACC, there isn't too many ranked teams. And also, depending on your schedule, you might not play that many. But it seems to be a theme here with North Carolina where it's like they're playing down to their competition a lot of times when they're playing teams that they're better than. But then against these really good teams or, above average teams or, good teams in the by ACC standards, they're still losing a lot of these games. They're getting out physicaled at the line of scrimmage. They're not necessarily a tough physical team, and especially on the defensive side of the ball where it doesn't matter if it's Gene Chizik or now it's Jeff Collins as the defensive coordinator. These defenses just keep struggling, and there just seems to be something fundamentally wrong with these North Carolina defenses. And if you look at them statistically, they're most of the time they're below average when it comes to national standards and ACC standards. So you kind of are in a weird situation here if you're North Carolina, where you love Mack Brown, you love everything he's done for the program. You even though again these teams are flawed, you guys are still winning games. He's doing a decent job, at least by the recruiting rankings of recruiting for North Carolina. But this dude's 73 years old. If this dude has struggled to get a consistently good defense for the last 6 years when he's in his 70s now, I don't think it's going to drastically change when he's 75 or 76 or 77, right? So you're in a situation here right now with North Carolina where and Mac might have kind of hinted here with this quote after the game of being like, hey, maybe I don't have what it takes anymore, is basically kind of what he was saying after that game. Maybe I am the problem here. And at least he has the awareness to notice that. But we're in a situation here with North Carolina where it feels like it's more than just a 1-year blip or 2-year blip or, hey, I took over this situation, I'm changing it and moving it in a different direction. No. What we saw this past Saturday was like the extreme end of the chaotic teams that Mack Brown coaches at North Carolina, but it's what has been going on here for the last few years with him at North Carolina, and I don't think as he gets deeper into his 70s anything is going to change. So it's going to be interesting to see here if Mack Brown stays after this season, if North Carolina decides to make a decision. Now, I don't think they would do that unless things got really bad. I don't think North Carolina, as it looks like right now on their schedule, plays another ranked team for the rest of the season. So I assume this team will still win 7, maybe even 8 games this year. I think they'll be a bowl team. But again, it's the same song and dance here with North Carolina these last few years. Again, gave up 60 points a few years ago to Appalachian State. Now they're giving up 70 points to James Madison. It's the same thing, and I don't think it's going to get fixed by just getting a new defensive coordinator. I think you might have to make the fish rots from the head down. And I'm not trying, that's a bad way to put it because I like Mack Brown. North Carolina fans like Mack Brown. But I think if he's the head coach for the next 3 years, let's say, we're going to keep having performances like this. So there you have it, guys. What do you guys think? How much longer should Mack Brown coach at North Carolina? How much more will he coach at North Carolina? Please let me know in the comments. And if you like this video, thank you very much for watching and getting to this point. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Those are the best things that you can do to help support the show. It gets this show in front of more people. It recommends it to more people on YouTube. And it costs you absolutely $0. And feel free to check out other videos on the Sports Detective Podcast channel page. There might be some other ones that you like. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll talk to you next time.